There tonight. Beer locks.
Mayor, we are right at 7
Isn't that an
o'clock,
English disease?
even though our clock doesn't say that. We are right at 7.
Move forward.
I did not.
We are.
Call meeting to order. Before we get into other business, I need the council to approve adding one item to the new business agenda, please.
Okay.
I'd like to add a discussion of the storm shelter as item C under new business in the agenda.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to add that, please?
Make a motion to add the storm shelter to discussion under new business as item C.
Second.
All in favor? 3-0. As everybody knows, we have a vacant seat on the council due to my election as mayor. We interviewed 4 extremely qualified candidates. All of them have a good heart and a good soul. After analyzing and going through the interview notes that everyone took, this time I'd like to appoint Angel Ramsey to fill my seat on the council. We made the decision. She's involved in the community. She has active interest in attending all of the council meetings and workshops, although she doesn't have to. Has expressed an extreme desire to bridge the gap between community and city hall. I feel she promotes strong communication, is strong in the consensus building area, has a desire to leave a legacy of having her family love the city of Towanda. That said, I'd like to get a motion, please.
What was the last name? I'm sorry.
Ramsey, Ramsey.
All right.
Angel, you want to stand up?
I do. Sure. Here I am. That's it.
Motion that we
Okay.
Approve the appointment.
approve the appointment of Angel Ramsey
Ramsey.
to the council.
Second.
All in favor? 3-0. Your turn, Missy.
Yes. Multitasking up here. Okay.
Sarah will administer the oath.
I have the oath of office.
Right,
And
I
you
go.
can see at the council bar. So,
Very good.
if you would repeat after me,
Yes, ma'am.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of Towanda City Council member.
of Towanda City Council member.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Hey, if I could get your signature,
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
official. Congratulations.
I'm very.
Blue pen.
Thank you.
She takes care of me. She makes, I won't sign anything.
Water balloons at 5 paces.
All right, I'm ready. There you are.
I
Oh,
really,
Thank you.
sit down, so-
Yeah.
I really want to thank everyone who showed an interest. There are a number of opportunities coming up in city government. I would encourage you to become involved for those that are watching remotely. We have a number of boards for appointment, and we have an election coming up in about 18 months with 3 seats being on the ballot. So experience in city government goes a long way sometimes in getting elected. Let's move on. Roll call, Sarah. Ms.
Sure. Mike Hayes,
President, I'm here.
Jennifer Watkins,
Here.
Chris Hunt, Kit Williams,
Here.
Drew Schultz,
Here.
and Angel Ramsey.
Here.
Everybody had a chance to look at the consent agenda. Any questions? Drew, I believe you had a question or
Yeah.
a correction in the minutes.
Correction in the minutes from Wednesday, February 11th. It was number 6 on under old business for the swimming pool filter. It shows that the vote was the motion was made by Jenny. second was by Kit, and the motion carried 3-0. However, I had to abstain from that vote due to it being partial, personal matter.
Okay.
I've noted that correction.
Anybody else have any questions or corrections that they would like to make to the
Nothing else.
consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the correction to Bruce Schultz vote on the swimming pool filter.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda with the change to the vote carried under the swimming pool filters. 2-0.
Second.
Made by Jenny, seconded by Kid, all in favor? Or moving along, public comment time. Make a couple of comments here myself. Limit the public comment to 3 minutes. It is public comment, not question and answer. Feel free to comment on anything that you have an interest in on the agenda or make any comments of something you'd like us to consider at some point in time. If you want to make a presentation at some point, you need to contact Sarah, make arrangements, get on the agenda, and those contacts, we're going to put out a memo on the Facebook page and the website. Those contacts need to be made the Friday before the packet goes out. Probably by Monday of the week the packet goes out. If you have any literature, pictures, anything you want to include in your presentation, you need to have them to her at that time so that she can arrange to get them in the packet so the council can review them before you. So if we have any public comments, we're going to limit it to 3 minutes. And anyone who has something to say, just feel free to hold up your hand or get up at the podium. Nobody? Well, we'll close public comments. We have no guest speakers tonight. We'll go to the first item on the old business agenda, which is the Main Street Building Resolution. There's a copy of it in the packet, I do believe. Lisa, would you like to discuss that?
Mayor, I will be phoning a guest in as we discuss this as well. We have a guest from SCED who will be phoning in as well.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You do have the resolution in front of you, that would set a time and place for the hearing of a demolition. But you also, have, we've
Hello,
included-
Stephanie. This is Sarah, and I'm going to put you on speakerphone.
included 3 options. Mr. Jones is in the process of applying for a grant for this project. So you have 3 options. I presented 3 options to you. As to whether or not you want to go ahead and set. Let me read them so that I don't back here. Number 1 would be to pass the resolution this evening or extend voting on it until the April meeting, which we would require more documents to prove that they're in the process of this grant. And the third option, I apologize, vote it, extend it to the April meeting. Requiring copies of the engineered drawings and the columns that were they're presented to us. The fact, some engineered drawings to replace the wooden structural supports with some columns that would allow Main Street to be the appearance to be cleaned up while the process of applying for the grant. So there's 3 options. Go ahead and approve the resolution, put off voting on it till next month, or extend it next month with the requirement of these columns. I hope I made that clear.
Kind of just a little bit of background in the council packet, which anyone online can access on the website and council members have in front of us. This really began in about November of 2024, with the realization that the building was lacking part of its roof and part of the parapet. Um, Rehab began later that year, and then in February last year, during some work on the building, additional damage occurred when the front wall was struck by machinery, resulting in crumbling facade, and additional damage. And so since that time, the structure has been braced with 2x4 bracing, um, while waiting for structural evaluation and repairs. And so the evaluation took place through the spring and summer of last year. And then anyone who's looking through the packet and timeline can see that several months the city had been waiting on new roof trusses. And so the project stalled out while waiting on that. Um, Lisa had prepared a statement of enforcing officer for last council meeting in February. And at the same time, we heard from Roberto, who is the contractor working on the building, that he had been in contact with the South Central Kansas Economic Development District about a possible grant opportunity to save the building. And so I do have on the phone with me tonight Stephanie from SCED. I believe she's the deputy director. In the room, we have Roberto, we have Mr. Perry, we have Juan. And so prepared just to share a little bit more about the different alternatives. Honestly, it's a challenging decision. Both alternatives have possibilities, both have challenges. And so wanted to just kind of talk about what some of those implications are. I'm trying to get one step at a time. We've got PowerPoints this month, and they are showing up for viewers who are online. And so this outlines a couple of the options. And specifically, we wanted to talk about the financial impact to the city of either pursuing condemnation or pursuing the grant. If the owner fails to fix or demolish the structure under the condemnation option, ultimately the city would have to contract the work. That cost would be assessed to the tax rolls, so the city would have to front the cost. The fact that the building walls are attached could make things fairly complex in that process. And then again, we could incur as the city the cost of engineering and other auxiliary costs with that. With the grant option, it is more time consuming. It's not a fast option, and grants seldom are. So there would be staff time cost involved for bids and grant management. My understanding is the city serves as the grant administrator. The applicant would need to document that they have a one-to-one cash match. That doesn't necessarily mean that the city provides that, but based on my past grants experience, my guess would be that the city would be the holder of funds through the grant process. And then again, the grants would be for construction and rehab, but they would not cover some of the administrative time and costs that we would incur. So
I will just provide a little bit of input here on the grant administration. SCED does offer those services. So we offer grant writing as well as full grant administration. So both grant options that they are looking at, one is the CDBG commercial rehab program, and the other one is the HEAL through the Office of Rural Prosperity. So both of those grants we are very experienced with and to offer that grant administration service. And those services can either be built into the grant cost or the owner can provide that service out of their local matching funds that are required for both of those. So just kind of wanted to put that out there that it is an option if the city and the building owner would like to solicit those services from SCED. Should the path forward be the grant options versus the condemnation process?
thank you.
So I guess I got some questions, and she might be able to answer this a little better. Say he applies for the grant, how long are we looking at before he finds out if he does in fact receive the grant? Like, is this 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? What are we looking at here if he were to apply for that grant? Roughly, how long does that take for him to find out?
So with the CDBG commercial rehab, that is an open round grant cycle, which means that application portal is open until funds are fully depleted from that category. They do have quite a few pre-applications already in queue. That doesn't necessarily mean that those full applications will be submitted, but there is a possibility that if we went with the CDBG route, there might not be money left by the time the application is submitted. For CDBG, those applications take a minimum of 45 days, just because there's narrative preparation, there are publication windows that have to be followed, there has to be a public hearing scheduled, and then the application cannot be submitted too close to when that public hearing is held. So even if the narratives were done super fast, it's a minimum of 45 days just to get all of those required publications and public hearing done. Usually on average is closer to 60 days, just because there is a lot of information gathering that has to take place. Also, the preliminary engineering report has to be completed with a full scope of work and a cost estimate. It does seem like that there is definite progress on that end if that process isn't already fully completed as far as with the engineering. So I would say just worst case scenario, 2 months for the grant application to be done and submitted with Commerce. For commercial rehab, they average about 45 days once an application is submitted to review and make an award announcement on that. So you're looking at, 3 months, 3.5 months from start to finish once that gets going. And then for the HEAL grant application, that is a once a year application deadline. And their portal typically doesn't open until October 1st, and then it closes typically on December 31st. So that award notification would not go out until early next year. Usually those come out in around February. So that one obviously a much longer timeline because that application is not even open yet.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Lisa, you may be able to answer this, may not be. So option one, we take no action or if no action is taken on by the property owner, the city would hire structure to be demolished and it would be assessed tax rolls. And then we'd have to look at finding somebody to make sure that that wall on the west side of Gambino's is structurally
We would have to
sound.
hire an engineer to,
Do we know roughly have we looked at roughly what something like that would cost the city if we decided to say, hey, option one tonight or not? We haven't even
I
looked
do
at
not
those
have
prices.
I do not have that information.
And then option two is still, how I'm reading, is still gonna cost the city money at some point, no matter what.
Likely, at the least, we would have staff time. We would have,
Okay.
So they would still be putting in work.
Yeah.
In between it all, they have engineered drawings that would allow them to build columns in the front, masonry and steel columns that would replace these wooden
What's the timeline on that?
braces.
We can do it this coming week. We have already the drawings on the, after evaluation of what damage happened and all the structural engineer report for the whole project. It has been submitted.
Been submitted, been approved, everything. They're just waiting on our go to say,
Yeah.
put the beams in, let's do this.
And that would improve the appearance and sturdy the building until they work through the process.
So take those big
Those would
deals down.
disappear.
Those 2x4s that are leaning,
Yeah.
take that out.
Disappear.
Right. Yeah, they are a higher hazard than the wall coming down.
Okay.
If you have a question.
I do have a question. Where in the process have you already started the grant writing? Have you looked into that and where are you applying? Which grant are you guys applying for?
Yeah, that's a question.
And Stephanie, I think that's a question for you. Where are we in the grants process? Has grant writing begun? What does that look like?
So no, I've had one conversation with Perry and Roberto to date, just kind of about what the plans are for the building. We reviewed the 2 grant opportunities that are available, and just he was indicating that CDBG commercial rehab would likely be the option he would select, just because the potential for that grant award is now versus waiting until the end of the year for HEAL. So I did reach out to, so that grant is through the Kansas Department of Commerce. It's the Community Development Block Grant Program, and they have multiple categories under that CDBG umbrella, and commercial rehab is one of them. So I did reach out to Tim Parks. I know that Perry has already had a conversation with Tim there at Commerce a couple of months ago, I believe. So I did reach out to Tim just to kind of get a feel for, have full applications come in yet? What is that looking like as far as availability of grant funds? Should we pursue this opportunity, or is it going to be something that needs to be tabled until next year if he feels like funds are going to be depleted before we were to get to the application process? And he said he's definitely open to seeing an application for this project. However, he does want to have a conversation with Perry prior to giving his approval to move forward with the application. He just wants a little bit more information about, the state of the building, the state of the preliminary engineering. And now that they have kind of looped me into that conversation, just to kind of have a conversation with all of us together to make sure it's going to be a solid project that he would feel comfortable seeing an application on. Because financing is one of the big options, or the big kind of scoring categories on these applications. And so I think just knowing the state of the building and the plans for the building, he just wants to make sure that the finances on the building owner side are there, because he is aware that this project sounds like it could be fairly expensive. So we have not signed any contracts or anything like that for grant writing. One, just we need to have that conversation with Commerce first. And two, because with CDBG, the city is the applicant and the grantee, we would need to have a conversation with the city to make sure that that is something that they are on board with. Because at the end of the day, the city is the one who is responsible for that grant, as far as, paying vendors and things like that. If Skid were the grant administrator, we bear the brunt of that responsibility and work, but there are some things that the city does have to participate in just because they are the name on the grant agreement.
Stephanie, what's the normal ballpark charge for writing this type of grant?
So for commercial rehab, it is $2,500 for member counties, which you guys are in a member county. So that's the fee for the commercial rehab grant writing. In commercial rehab, the building owner I've never had a project where it's not the building owner paying the grant administration and paying for the grant writing fee. I don't think I've had a city yet that has, participated in that matching process, just because the building owner is the end benefit. So I've always seen that the building owner is the one who pays those fees.
I guess my question for the council is, right now, the big main thing for us and from everybody I've heard from talking around town is they just don't like seeing those 2x4s there
And securing them.
and securing the building. So I guess my question for all you guys is, if we decide to go with, I guess it'd be what, option two,
Is it up?
where we say, hey, you're gonna put those columns in, get those 2x4s down, do that. And then as long as the building's still, standing, that wall is fine. It's not so much as a quote unquote eyesore.
Correct.
I don't see the problem with that. It's just mainly been that. But as long as we can make sure that that wall, that west wall, is going to still stay structurally sound for Gambino's.
Okay, Roberto, you indicated that you could probably do that next week.
Yes.
So how long would it take before those 2x4s come off the front of that building and you are 99.9% certain it's not going to fall into the street?
Because it's exterior work, we always do weather permitting, but if the conditions are right, probably in a week.
But
I'm sorry, let me, regarding to the Gambino wall, probably now he has exposure to the weather because of the roof is not there. But let's say that it was a vacant lot, that roof, that wall will be exposed to the weather, it doesn't matter what.
Correct.
But what I'm going to do, as per Mr. Jones' request, is to reinforce that corner, because that's the one that belongs to his wall.
Yeah.
On top of those columns.
Do we have the report, because I heard you say, the lady on the phone, my apologies, about the state of the building.
Mhm.
Do you have that report and have we been presented with that?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
JEO signed off on the
Okay.
engineering study.
okay.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, she said they're not doing, he's not looking at the HEAL grant, he's looking at doing the C. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's,
So like if we're entertaining a motion, can we determine which grant we're willing to wait for? Cause like she said, that HEAL grant isn't gonna be till October to December. So can we say, hey, we're willing to go with option 2 as long as, can we do that? Can we determine which grant he applies for since it's his grant that he's applying for? Can we do something like that? Because we don't want to have to sit here and wait till October.
Sure.
Obviously. So can we say, we're willing to vote tonight with option 2, however,
Suggest.
we suggest that he do the
CDBG.
yeah, that one, rather than the HEAL grant, so that that money can come within the next
6 months.
6 months
90
rather than
90 days.
or 90 days rather than 6 to 9 months or what have you. I didn't know if we're allowed to vote which grant he decides to use.
So let me seek some clarification. My understanding of replacing columns, replacing 2x4s with columns, is separate and distinct from any grant. Is that correct?
Yes.
So in my brain, this is going in stages. Number 1, which is immediacy, immediate eye soreness or removing eye soreness, which is adding columns and removing 2x4s. Step 2 then is starting, and they could be somewhat parallel, but step 2 is starting whatever grant. The only part of which that we have to sign off on for is staff time, and which one, right?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think that as far as the grant process goes, it's just which one are you willing to accept? And if it's the first one, then you're verbally saying we're willing to accept and put staff time in, invest staff time into the CBDG, which is more immediate than the HEAL. So again, I'm not sure
Okay.
that's the perfect answer to your question.
No,
But I think it's,
No,
in my brain, the way I was understanding it was one's not contingent upon the other. The JEO is signed off on replacing 2x4s with columns. That could be done sometime in the next week or so, ish. And that's preliminary / step 1. Step 2 is start the grant writing process. The applicant is the city. However, the payer is the property owner.
Mhm.
The only investment we have in it is staff time. And then administration of funds, perhaps at the end, et cetera. And that's fine too. To me, they're separate and distinct, if I'm understanding correctly.
I think you are.
One's
I think the only-
correction,
the
it may
only-
be their engineer that has approved the drawings. They
For the
have a
grant.
licensed engineer for the columns.
Their engineer approved the
They
drawings,
have a licensed engineer. who has
but they were
approved
submitted to
the
our engineer for city approval.
For the
Yes.
columns.
They were,
Yes.
Did they go to?
uh-huh.
Yes, they did.
do we have,
Yeah, the 3 set of documents was approved by JEO at once by then.
because the last,
I'm sorry, because those columns are optional for the interior also. So we're gonna use that for the exterior and interior.
how long ago was that? Because the last thing we have on here was that JEO approved the drawings for structural on 9/4 of 25. So have you recently submitted the
The peer drawings.
the
They're
drawings to
normally
JEO? Okay.
Yeah, they were already sent at one time.
I'll need a copy of those.
One thing I'd like to remind council of in drafting a motion is that the communication with this situation has been somewhat like pulling teeth out of a wild boar sometimes. And I think a part of any decision we make tonight needs to be a regimented communication with both the contractor and with Perry.
Yeah. So in my head, contractor and Perry are one and the same.
Well,
They're the same team.
correct.
And if, in my head, if you're replacing 2x4s with columns and they have a licensed engineer that's proposing how they do that, that needs to be approved by the city's engineer for that
Correct.
process. To me, that is separate and distinct from any SCED grant or HEAL grant or CBDG
Correct.
grant or anything
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Does anybody think differently than that?
I just wanted a clarification to make sure
No,
because
no.
we're seeing option 1, option 2, but then under option 2, it's historic economic, the HEAL grant program. So it's like, okay, so how do they coincide? So you cleared it up for me that, that'd be next step is what it seems
That's
like.
clear
how-
what my understanding is. I'm not
But-
saying that's correct.
Well, that's how I'm seeing is we say, hey, this now, and then next month we look at, okay, they've got the pillars up or they've got the deals up. Now let's talk about the grant situation.
I think that
at
if-
point is how I
If their engineer submits their column proposal is what I'll call it, and our engineer approves that work to be done, is one piece. I think the second piece is, hey, because you guys are doing that, and because we hear you saying you're gonna apply for a grant, you can postpone voting on any resolution, is the second piece. And then the third piece is they can determine what grant they want to apply for, not apply for, et cetera, before you determine what your next step is or not. Whether or not you're willing to invest staff time / holding funds somewhere down the road, whatever that point is, et cetera. To me, those are the three pieces. I just wanted to be clear that ultimately, I think our engineer needs to sign off on the columns. And if that's something that was different than what was approved in September, then that needs to be clarified and submitted so that nobody's putting in columns next week without JEO approving it. And then JEO going, we don't know what you're talking about.
That would require a separate permit, wouldn't it, to put those columns in? So you would normally require JEOs.
Once I get the approval, I could issue that permit.
Mhm. And they have been approved by GEO.
Okay, well, we're gonna need something written.
We're not saying you're wrong, but we have to check with our engineer to make sure that that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have one other question. Let's say that you apply for the CDBG grant and funds run out, or it's not enough to cover the rehab of the building, then what? Because then you've opened this box and then you've got a building and we could be potentially back where we
Right.
were with columns complete, but the building not rehab.
Building.
I mean, it's already open, right?
Yes.
can't really get any worse.
Well-
as far as
I mean, I'm just trying to make sure I understand the question, but in my head, it's already
No,
open.
you,
The roof
Yes.
is open, the
It's
front
open.
is.
no.
but that is a good
That's
question. Mark.
that's not what I meant. What I meant is that you've already opened this box of worms.
Oh,
You
yeah.
started
Open Pandora's
rehab
box.
on the columns. You understood what I
Yeah.
was.
Oh,
That you've started this work, you completed the columns, and now you apply for the grant, you don't get it.
Mhm.
Either one, then what?
We have, or what I hear with Stephanie in previous conversation, I'm working on that program in property in Ural as well. So to minimize the financial burden of the property owner, that's what the grant is applying for. Now, since he moves on, then there are two opportunities of those grants. If happens that runs out, the door for the other one opens, and then we apply for that one, and it will run also on. And at some point, it has to be repaired.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the mission of the
Exactly.
council.
To maybe answer your question, if the governing body believes that step one, which is project column, is going to appease as much as, or at least minimize the discomfort level with neighbors, okay, and that at least temporarily satisfies that. If applying for grants for an eventual remedy to get the building commercially fixed, whatever word you want to put on there, falls through, you still have option one available to you. It's just going to be in a year.
Okay.
So you don't really lose
Option one
anything
doesn't-
other than time.
Mhm. And by the time that happens, the property is gonna be secure, and
Okay.
yeah, it won't be an eyesore.
Okay.
So it sounds like we would do well to do two motions. The first one, authorizing the column project, and then the second one authorizing city staff time and assistance to assist in managing the grant project.
I would agree that two motions. On the first motion, I would also put pending approval by JDO.
Yeah, that's
Any other questions?
More of a statement to council. I'm hesitant with the timeline that we had already given them. We've been through several waiting phases.
Mhm.
I just would like to see this progress faster.
Yeah.
We've been very patient, and that is one of the hesitations that I do.
Yeah.
So then that
Yes,
brings up the question,
following
did you
through.
finally get the trusses?
They are still working on the engineering part because the original plan before the little event happened to weaken the building, they were different. So we're done with them. Now they are gonna go into production.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you had any communication with JEO about the pillars, the
No,
piers?
but it would be easy for me to do, so.
I mean, can we give them like a timeline? Like he's saying they can have it in a week, so can we say, hey, we'll give you until the next city council meeting to make sure these pillars are in. If they're not, we're reverting back to option one and this is over type deal. Can we?
I think, yeah.
I
think
just
that
think we
would
put the
be
resolution on
included
next month's
in
agenda
option
as well.
two.
Okay. And see where they're at this time next month and
Just extend the resolution, voting on the resolution with some
Mhm.
codicil, with some
I don't
requirements.
see a problem with that. I mean, I know it's a month, but that he said a week.
Mhm. So it should be done by then.
That's how I see it.
If the weather holds up.
Yep.
May
Yeah.
take 3 weeks if we get a bunch
Weather
of.
permitting.
Boy, laugh because of the construction.
Yeah.
If the piers are down there and we see it's happening.
Yeah.
It will be basically just a matter of GEO saying that they already approved those columns and then for us to move
With
on.
Lisa.
Give me a copy here.
It's already on the set that it was sent in September 2025.
Let me be clear.
So we're talking about the drawings from September.
Uh-huh.
And let me be
Those columns-
clear, because I don't remember the drawings from September. My recommendation is not that the columns themselves as a material are approved, but that the project column is approved. Meaning the materials, the process, the placement, the whole shebang.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where it says down here to replace the current 2x4 bracing to improve the appearance of the building, keep it safe and supported while they advance with the grant funding process.
Yes.
Okay.
The structure of the columns are the same ones that we're gonna use in the interior and the exterior too.
It's council's choice.
I make a motion that we approve the, I guess I don't know how to word this, the contractor to put in the 3 columns of steel beams with brick or stucco cover on a concrete footing for the front of the building to replace the current 2x4 bracing to improve the street appearance of the building and keep it safe supported while they advance with the grant funding process pending that our engineer at JEO does approve the new plans.
Second.
And and have that done by the next city council meeting.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? 4-0. Now we probably need a motion to extend the voting on the
Did you put that
resolution.
for?
Yes.
Okay, we're not quite done with this one.
Okay.
We're gonna need a motion to essentially option 2, extend the voting on the resolution until the next council meeting, till the April council meeting.
I'll make a motion to extend the voting option on this building until the next council meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
Council, I heard some element of timeliness in terms of getting the CDBG grant initiated. So we might recommend a third motion to authorize staff to assist in grant management processes.
I'll make a motion to have staff assist in this grant process.
Second.
all in favor? 4-0. That cover
Thank
them all?
you, guys.
I
I
think
was gonna say something really quick. Skip is really good on grant writing. They can probably help you with the grants that you're looking for, the water replacement,
Oh.
all that, everything. They're so good.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
I think you guys killed the motion.
Oh,
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
yeah. I think
Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it.
I just,
Thank you.
that's why I kept asking if I knew how
That's
I'd
enough
say it, but I
motions
want to
for
make
one
sure how I
night.
said it was the correct way. So I was like, well, it's just easier to read that at the bottom.
That was my workout.
It'd stand out.
Yeah, the whole pending engineer approval. I was like, that
You're
has
the
it
only
is
one
up.
left.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, council, hopefully the evening only gets easier.
Well,
Let's move on to the ball field management agreement. Everyone had a chance to read through the agreement? You need to go get kids something to eat or?
Okay, the only problem with having the PowerPoint is it's behind me, so I'm going to kind of glance and turn back and forth. So in January was my first meeting, and there was discussion around the ball field and a desire for Circle Recreation Commission to be able to use the ball fields for practice facilities for their programs. As I researched, what I learned was that there had been efforts to come to contracts last year, and they had not been successful. And so, what we tried to do this year was to really establish a framework for community collaboration with this contract. We want to activate the city parks and draw people to Towanda. Ball field practices are a good way to do that. We also want to support CRC in its programming opportunities and look for the opportunities to be a good partner. Plus, one of the provisions of the contract creates some data collection from CRC to begin to show the impact of their programs in the city of Towanda. And so that can help to guide future conversations. So right now, what we're really looking at is a first time 1-year contract to see how this goes as a new partnership opportunity. As I said, the city has ball fields at its park. Circle Recreation provides programming. And the proposed contract before you tonight was modeled off of a successful city and recreation commission contract. I previously worked for the city of Derby, and we had a very similar contract that I helped manage there to what's being proposed tonight. So this proposed contract shifts some responsibilities so that the CRC functions as an operator for those ball fields, rather than the city being the operator, mowing services, things like that throughout the season. And as I said, it serves as a starting point that then we can test how it goes and we can build on for future years. We do have an end of season meeting baked into the contract where we'll come together and that meeting will help to guide future contract negotiations. As I said, CRC would be the primary user and then operator of the ball field. So that includes scheduling duties, that includes field care, weed treatments, things like that. So for the CRC, that creates an opportunity for them to control their costs. They feel like they can get mowing services at a cost that is lower than city staff, and that makes sense to me. City staff are full-time employees with benefits, whereas you can contract that for a lower price. It also becomes a cost-neutral situation for the city. So while we're not making money on this contract, we've taken away a lot of the costs that we originally thought were going to be part of it. Things like mowing, things like utility provisions, and other expenses. And then both entities are responsible for clear communication and collaboration and looking toward continued improvement for the residents that we both serve. So financial impacts last year, the cost estimate of what it cost if the city did everything was almost $16,000. So we looked instead for win-win opportunities to right-size that. We defined the duties as I outlined before, and so that includes CRC reimbursing the city for electrical use on each field and even on the flag football fields outside of pool season. So we've gotten pretty detailed in terms of those reimbursements. They are able to place a portable restroom in the park, which alleviates some utility and maintenance responsibilities of having the ballpark restroom open. And the contract was reviewed by legal representation for both cities. We actually share an insurance provider that was able to review the insurance provisions from both sides and ensure that both of us are adequately covered. And so with that in mind, I'm glad to stand for any questions.
So as of now, with that, how it's written, it's not going to cost the taxpayers of Towanda any more than it would have if we didn't do this to begin with. Is that correct?
It's not gonna cost us as much as if we did. Because we still have to mow it.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that factor into Oil Hill residents, Benton, Greenwich Elementary area, they're coming over here to play, but they're not paying the same taxes that we are to use our field. So does that basically mean that CRC is gonna have to up their stuff to kind of cover those extra costs? Because I don't think it's fair that Towanda residents are paying for everybody else to come over here and use these ball fields. And that's my only shit about it. I just don't want Towanda residents to be out any more money.
So there are some basic safety things that we needed to do. We did a walkthrough, Rylan and I from the city, and then both staff members from the rec. We did a walkthrough. We identified a broken bleacher board or broken board in one of the dugouts, some fence tears, some bases that were not in playing condition. Those types of things we would need to do for safety regardless.
Mhm.
But what we've tried to do is, as the mayor said, we've actually shifted away the mowing cost. So those costs are entirely being borne by the rec. But then they have the opportunity to contract and to also ensure that it is upkept at their conditions instead of them contacting us, hey, we found more thorns or thistles out there and we need
Okay.
another treatment. You're right. Ultimately, the citizens of Towanda are paying for the existence of the ball fields as part of our parks.
Mhm.
But they're not paying any more for the ball fields to be offered this way. And
Okay.
instead, it spreads the cost out to all program participants through the rec.
Okay.
We did discuss, and this year we did not do it, but once we have some data looking at what types of improvements would they like to see, and what would a reasonable user fee be that we could begin to build in that could create a little bit of revenue stream for desired improvements. We said this year we don't know enough about what those would be, what the costs would be, and what's reasonable. Always we want on the rec side to keep things so that all families can participate. We don't
Correct.
want to price anybody out. It's not a money maker for the city, but if they want the dugouts redone, we can figure out what that's going to cost and then they can build it in their programming. So in future years, it could lead toward actually skewing toward a little bit of revenue coming in. Additionally, we hear anecdotally that Jumpstart and Gambino's and some other retail businesses benefit when there's more practice pulling people through.
No, absolutely. I just, like I said, that was my only concern is that,
I think the big key here is this first year is going to be a test year.
Mhm.
We're going to figure it out.
I'm fine with that.
But if we don't take a step to initiate something, we'll still be figuring it out
Next
10 years.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions? I'd like to make the motion.
I'll make a motion to enter into the contract with the Circle Rec Commission for our 1 year contract on the ball fields.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? 4-0. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Ryland's up next.
Round Road, performance. We have some equipment we would like to dispose of. We have a 1995 Chevy pickup, 1500. Needs transmission and shot. Will not go into any gears. And we already have enough vehicles to staff the current maintenance crew. The Blond Ox paver. The parts are obsolete and hard to get hold of, and it would be a significant cost to get it operational. And then the homemade pump trailer is not adequate for the city's current needs and potential liability since it was built in-house. It's been recently replaced.
The trailer can't be used for anything else whatsoever?
It was kind of built to fit all the pumps. So it's not, I would say it can't be used for anything else, but since it was made out of the front end of a pickup
Yeah.
instead of the rear end, it's all homemade tie rods and everything else. So,
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
What's the proposed method of disposal?
Purple Wave.
Purple Wave, okay. And how quickly are you anticipating disposing it as quickly as possible?
Yeah, pretty much.
And distribution of the funds from that side.
Yeah, they'll be going to, yeah, they'll be going to replenish the equipment reserve fund. And maybe using funds possibly to buy a dump trailer.
So
I know at one point there'd been discussion about selling one of the dump trucks. But I'm assuming that we need to wait until we make a decision on the dump trailer before we
Yeah,
dispose of it.
correct.
We actually had, it's one of the dump trucks on this list at one point while prepping
Well, I was
this.
thinking we talked.
And we said, maybe not quite yet.
That's good.
So
That's not.
from here, these are the items that we know we don't need. And from there, we want to begin to map a master strategy that says, if we get this, we get rid of this, and back and forth so that we're.
It's like with the ballparks, there's gotta be a starting point. Sarah, your recommendation.
And we do have a recommended motion, and that would be to direct staff to dispose of equipment as recommended, with all income from disposal credited to the city's equipment reserve fund to assist with future equipment purchases.
motion to recommend direct staff to dispose of equipment as recommended with all income from disposal credited to city's equipment reserve.
Second. Good. All in favor? 4-0. Thank you. Thank you, Rylan. Are you up on the next one too? Yes, you are.
Actually, on the
Oh, we
board
got
side,
sales tax. up there.
yes,
Yeah.
we've got another fun
You get to-
discussion
you get
before
first
Ryland.
on it.
Okay. I'm gonna stand up. This might be easier. Maybe. Okay, as we've discussed the last couple of months, Towanda is considering next steps as a current sales tax sunsets in early 2027. The 1% tax that has been in effect for almost 10 years now was approved in 2016 and collection began March 1st of 2017. So that will sunset February 28th of 2027. So just under a year from now. That tax was used for general fund items, including police protection, swimming pool, equipment, and other needs. The way it was written was pretty broad, and so functionally it has become a general fund income source that assists with those, but hasn't had clear definition. So as we've discussed the last couple of months, City Council has looked at a sales tax to replace that sunsetting tax. And so we are looking at putting a sales tax question on the August primary election ballot. Part of that is because it aligns best with our budget process so that we have answers on whether or not we have that sales tax as we finalize the 2027 budget. Focus areas identified at a council workshop in February include streets and sidewalks and police and public safety activities. Looking back at the past 3 years, that 1% sales tax averages out to about $175,000 annually, which is comparable to about 17 to 18 mills in property tax. So not having that sales tax in place likely leads to an increase in mill levy, but it's a little bit more complex than just saying with it in place, we stay the same. And so looking at the Kansas Department of Revenue, city sales tax may not exceed 2% for general purposes or 1% for special purposes. I have to confess, I am still trying to untangle exactly what that looks like, given that we already have a 1% sales tax for water system improvements that will go live here in April. So I'm trying to make sure that we are within legalities, and we'll consult with the Department of Revenue based on tonight's conversation to get clarity. Towanda, again, currently has two 1% sales taxes. The one that we're talking about tonight that sunsets next year, and the one that voters approved last fall that will go into effect here next month and assist with water system improvements. So financial impact, the voter approval would provide sustained revenue that can help address community priorities. And as I'm looking at our budget, and I've been digging deep in the budget, just trying to get a handle on where the money has been spent and historical trends and things like that. If we move to a tax that's intended for particular services, it does shift some of our revenue structures. But there's a lot of opportunity to really look at what are we spending? Are there places to buckle down a little bit more so that we can enhance in other areas? And so then once a sales tax question is formed, that will help guide as we build probably 2 budget proposals for 2027. Again, anticipating one with and one without the sales tax. This is a little small on the screen, but I wanted to give a sense of if we're trying to split the sales tax between 2 key priority areas, kind of how some of those splits could break down. And so if you went with like a 25-75 split, in 1 year, that 25 split is going to be about 44,000, and the 75 split is just over 130,000. And so if we're trying to fund both priorities, looking at kind of where is the money needed, what is the level of service that we're desiring to do. And then I multiply that out by 10 years as well, so that we can start to get a sense, for example, with road projects, what we do in 1 year isn't as significant as what we would do over 10 years. With police, it's a little different because it is a service, it is employee and equipment oriented. And so I'll come back to this slide as we discuss, but wanted to just show what some of those breakdowns look like. Okay, currently on those identified priorities, in 2025, we budgeted 130,000 for police and law enforcement. Our actual spending last year was only 73,000. This year's budget is 145,000, and next month I'll probably pull trends on where we are in the first quarter. Right now, the general fund street spending is done through transfers from the general fund to the street reserve fund. And so in 2025, we had budgeted 30,000 in transfer. We actually transferred 27,000, so we were pretty on budget. This year's budget was budgeted at 65,000, and I will be honest, I don't think that's realistic. I'm looking at some other areas where the budgeted amounts don't meet historical spending, and so that number probably will not be able to be met this year. And so if you look roughly at, actual spending budget somewhere in the middle, that 1% sales tax could roughly sustain the current service and kind of create a carve out where what we're funding out of general fund mill levy dollars right now could move to being allocated. Which what that does is it shifts the funding source, but we don't enhance either service under that model. And so what I really want to do tonight is open this up for conversation that can help in guiding forming sales tax questions. We recognize that the sales tax, if we lose it, then we're trying to figure out how to fund something that we've had a revenue source for. And so it's probably a necessity to advance the identified priorities. It is not going to be guaranteed to maintain or decrease our mill levy. I think more of that will be in just staff discipline and budget building and following those budgets. Mm-hmm. So again, savings in one part of the general fund could allow for transfers into another. But again, we don't necessarily advance or enhance services if we're just moving funding and funding sources around. With both priorities that we've talked about, we may still need to look at some budget direction beyond the sales tax to really enhance and expand those services. And so tonight's conversation is more just about if we were to pursue a 1% sales tax, what kind of direction would you like to give in terms of how it would be divided? Or depending on the answers I get from the Department of Revenue, if we could go a little bit more generalized, would there be any appetite for an increase in the total amount? Beyond 1%, we are able to go up to 2%. And so a lot of questions for consideration. I will say we need to submit our sales tax question to the county clerk by early June. So we have April and May to continue to chew on this and refine. And with each month, I'll bring back updates and options.
I do have a question so you said it sunsets, the 1% sunsets,
Mhm.
and it's voted no, let's not do it. You
Mhm.
said it's looking like we would probably have to raise the mill between 17 to 18.
Yes, to sustain current service levels.
Or I guess for the people who may be watching this who don't understand,
Mhm.
what does that mean in terms of taxes on, say, $100,000 home?
Mhm.
What does that raise your taxes? So, because I can tell you until I looked it up and figured
Mhm.
out what it was and how it worked, coming here, I didn't really understand what it is, what a mill was and how it worked. So I think if we kind of
Mhm.
lay that out for people who are watching,
Mhm.
they'll understand, oh, wow, that raised my taxes this much versus the 1% sales tax on
Mhm.
something. So just to kind of give people a better idea of what they could be in for if it's voted no.
Yeah, I can explain a little bit tonight. The other thing I'll say is, as I've been prepping for council, I have not put out a Towanda Herald yet. And so I'm hoping that will come next week. And so that could be something I could outline in greater detail with calculations people could use in the Herald.
Yeah.
So get a little bit number nerdy here. If you had $100,000 house, my court people are laughing over here.
I'm just doing it for simple, easier math.
That would be your appraised valuation. So
Mhm.
that's the value you think it could sell at. And we're using a 100 as just a general number. Your assessed valuation is actually going to be 11.5% of the appraised value. And so the assessed valuation is going to be 11,500. And then a mill actually ties to a thousandth, back to high school math. And so it is 1,000th of that assessed valuation. So your mill is roughly going to translate to about $115 on a $100,000 house. So you do all that math to get down to what is one mill, and then you build it back up to say what is 40 mills. So you multiply that, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that $100 to $115 extra times
Mhm.
17, that's what it is,
Mhm.
and then divide that by 12,
Mhm.
and that's kind of roughly what your taxes go up a month versus a 1% sales tax. So that's kind of
Yeah. Or if you don't pay through your escrow, if you're paying in 2 payments a year because you're a homeowner, then it hits a little harder. And so, yeah, I would love to actually put that on paper and put it in the Herald. Y'all didn't think I could do that, did you?
Yeah. Just so people have, and that's my thing is, it took me going on and figuring all this stuff out. So we can make it a little bit easier.
For sure.
Especially for people who may not have the best internet service or don't understand how to use the internet as much or what to look for. We can present that information to them. It would be a lot easier, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, with anything, it's about diversifying revenue. Like you still have to have the revenue to run things from one source or another. And so it's, do you pay in those large sums where you're seeing it on your monthly house payment in your escrow, or you're paying it twice a year, or are you paying it with every single? Here we have a lot of online transactions. And so anything that comes to a PO box in Towanda, pizzas, jumpstart purchases, things like that. So it is a shift. It's still a tax, but how it builds and how it's perceived can be very different.
Right. Okay.
And so, yeah, with that, I would love just direction on if we were to draft a tax question, kind of what is the weighting of priorities between the two priorities that you've identified? And then we can also look at communication strategies so the public knows what it is that we're asking for and kind of what the offsets are.
I don't mind the 1%, and I wouldn't even mind if we went up 1.5, but I absolutely don't like hearing that too. Whatsoever.
I don't have any specific thoughts on allocation of those funds.
Okay. Percent to
public safety versus the streets.
Right.
See if I can turn this a little bit more your direction.
That helped a lot. Thank you.
More into
Yeah.
how they're funded currently.
Mm-hmm.
I would need more guidance.
Mm-hmm.
If that 70% is used besides street, is that
Mm-hmm.
what we're looking at?
These are just, I'm sorry, I should have clarified. So if we're looking across, if you divide it 25, 75, your 25% is going to generate about 44,000. Your 75% is going to generate a little over 130,000. So these just offer different split options. We've got a 25, 75, a 30, 70, a 1/3, 2/3, 60, 40, and 50, 50, just to give a sense of how the numbers break down.
Now, I guess my question is I believe you said last year we budgeted 137,000 for law enforcement, but we budgeted 130, but we only used 73.
Mhm.
So I guess where did that extra, 57,000, 56 and
General
some change go? It
General
goes back in
fund.
the general
Yes,
fund, and at that
so-
point we can use it for however we need. It's not.
Yeah.
Yes, so functionally, and I will have a full first quarter as well as analysis of past years reports. But within the general fund, the budgets are more permeable, like funds can move from item to item.
Mhm.
And I've found several categories where we over budgeted versus what we actually spent significantly. And then there are other categories where the opposite is true. So that's part of my first task in prepping a 2027 budget and probably a 2026 revised budget, where we shore up what are the numbers that we're proposing and what's our spending plan and do those match. So here, I think the intent of the 130,000 and the 146,000 was if our contract were more fully honored through sheriff's staffing, that's what it could run. However, a lack of sheriff staffing has resulted in fewer billable hours. Now, the challenge here, as you're saying, the unspoken challenge, is those funds didn't just hang out. They've probably been used on other things within the general
Well,
fund.
it's offset.
Mhm.
Do we have so you said last year, 2025, actual billable was 73,182.51.
Mhm.
Do we
And-
have historic and are we seeing it going up, down, kind of staying the
Mhm.
same? Because wouldn't that be easier for us to be within the last however many years they've been within 5 to 10,000
Mhm.
of that 73? Why are we still budgeting 130 if we're seeing a trend that we're still?
Because contractually, that's if the sheriff was able to provide the service according to our contract, that's what our expense would have been. So that's
Okay.
what we have to plan for.
Okay,
They
were
never
scheduled
have,
before.
and they never do, but
One.
okay.
that's contractually what we could be obligated for, so that's how it has to go into the budget.
That's if they follow that contract 100% to the
100%.
T.
That's
Yeah.
our
Okay.
obligation.
Okay.
So we got a plan for that. If we don't use it, then, and we haven't for, I don't think.
And that's my
Right,
thing. Is
and it
kind of
has
where
been
where are
declining.
we at roughly average?
Yeah, I don't
know.
have the numbers in my head, but I do remember seeing it decrease. And so,
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By April of last year, we
So-
were down to one cup.
What do you need from the council at this point, Sarah?
what I'd like to be able to do is to take up to 3 options that we could begin to draft some questions around, and then bring 3 options back in April.
Okay.
And so in drafting questions, I'll take a stab at it. I'll run it past the guy who can actually make it for you that we're legal. I'll check it with Kansas Department of Revenue. Because you're our attorney, that's why.
Not on budget.
Well,
But with sales tax questions. And so then that gives us, next month, I plan to bring the council a first quarter budget report as well as a little bit more historical in the budget. So you'll have that, and then you'll have several options of sales tax questions we could go forward with. kind of with a little bit more framework as I'm building my own framework. So,
I think that's reasonable.
mhm. So what we could do initially, if you were to select something that mirrored current funding, you might go a 70% for law enforcement, 30% for streets. And that would be ultimately having the sales tax funding source kind of replenish to the general fund. If you wanted to go more aggressive on streets and then to say, as we look at starting up a police department, that's going to cost more than what the sales tax could generate 100%. And so where's that money going to come from? We could go more aggressive on streets here and then look for other funds for the police department through grants or other options. So there are a lot of options.
Okay. And you said right now we're about 70-30.
That would be a rough estimate. And the other thing I could do is bring an option that looked at more of a generalized. I know that there's a strong desire for accountability to say this is for this and this, and these are the percentage breakdowns. However, if I get feedback back from the Department of Revenue that says you can't have another specialized one, you have to go generalized, then we might use more general language, but still have tracking mechanisms that honor what we tell voters.
General fund and
Mhm.
budget,
Yeah.
general fund the appropriate amounts for law enforcement
Mhm.
streets.
Mhm.
And stick to that budget.
Mhm.
That's gonna be pretty well. Either way, it's gonna be pretty well set in stone.
Yeah.
What would you like to see?
I don't even know. I mean, I would say seeing roughly what we keep it 70-30, roughly, I guess what we're looking at as far as, I mean, it's hard to say because, we haven't done any budgets yet. We haven't, when is the contract up with Butler County Sheriff's Office?
December 31st.
December 31st. So it's just hard to say because we don't know what they're going to come back with us. They could, they could come back to us and say, hey, you know what? We see here this year the contract is only going to be 100,000. I'm just throwing a number out there.
But you've got to satisfy the general concept that if it's only 100,000, you're not getting the level of service you allegedly had the last couple of years.
No, absolutely.
I'm sure that contract's going to have to go up because of the wage increases, the insurance costs, and everything else. So, I think 70-30 is probably a very realistic split.
Okay.
I would hope.
I mean, maybe even a 60-40 just because.
I was going to say, I would hope that we could do 60-40.
Just because of the big
things are.
Well, I just see it as we budgeted 130, we only use 73. Is that bad? Yeah, because it means we didn't get the coverage we were supposed to. But just to kind of see what it would be, nothing like set in stone, but just to kind of,
No, I agree.
Okay, I can do both of those, and I could do one that's a little bit more generic if that's what we need to do to pass it with revenue. No motion is required on this. That's just staff direction, and I will bring options back next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
We're going to put Ryland up again next.
We got Rylan again.
Ryland.
Back.
I think this
You're
might be the
busy.
last time, huh?
Rylan wants to spend the money we just earned.
I sell on his equipment. Let's buy new.
Yeah. Well, he's a taxpayer.
So staff have identified a need for a dump trailer. It can be used pretty much across all categories, parks, water leak, asphalt. The trailer also provides fuel and maintenance savings versus using a dump truck all the time.
You don't need any general modifications?
No, this is bought,
Everything will be ready to go.
ready to go. So we got 3 quotes, 2 from Trailers Plus and 1 from Trailers and Hitches in Augusta. The trailers are not being held, and may sell prior to approval. Staff recommend council authorize purchase, with the maximum spending around $12,000.
I would assume there's some economic savings there too, because I'm quite certain it doesn't cost as much to insure a dump trailer as it does a dump truck.
Yeah.
What are we spending maintenance wise ballpark, Sarah? Do you know on the dump truck?
So that's actually an assignment I've given one of our staff members.
Probably several hundred.
Yeah,
Well,
We
I
don't-
would think more than 1,000, but
Yeah.
we don't necessarily currently have a tracking inventory by piece of equipment.
Okay.
And so we are going to be building that before this year's budget season.
Okay.
And so that will give us better insight into how each piece of equipment is performing and what our savings could be.
I would say you're probably going to come pretty close to the cost of that out of the equipment you're selling. Reasonably, half at least.
The only thing with Purple Wave though is you never know. You
That's what I
could get a
say.
bunch of people.
Hopefully get half.
Yeah. And you could very well make more. You just never
Yeah.
know with who's on that day.
Well, whatever we get, it's money that's sitting around now that could be put to better use in equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just sitting there. We're not using any of it. So.
Council, I would also note that before we sell equipment, the city's equipment reserve fund has a balance of just over $27,500. And so then we'll sell equipment as well, which will help to replenish that. But there are funds available currently.
So we're gonna recoup some. So if we choose to do the 11,795 in the long run, it's not really gonna run us that because we're gonna recoup from Purple Wave, depending.
Mhm.
Hopefully,
Right,
yeah.
and
Hopefully,
our recommended motion is to authorize the spending up to 12,000.
yeah. I think that's
Somebody want to make that
Any
motion?
questions?
no.
All right, I'll make a motion to authorize spending up to $12,000 for the purchase of a dump trailer.
Second.
All in favor? Laura,
Okay,
You
Angel,
have 3 seconds.
My nose.
you like it?
I think she got it.
okay,
Good.
Thank you, Riley. Okay.
we have a request from the After Prom Committee again this year for a donation to the After Prom Party. I think it's a great deal. It puts the kids in there and so they run around. Historically, I believe we get around $200
Mhm.
out of the mayor's fund.
What do we usually use the rest of that for? We usually use around Christmas time, right?
Christmas
Or-
time, we give some gift cards out to
Pumpkin
some of the
tree.
families that need,
Yeah.
help. We've used it. There was a couple of times over the years, when the house burned down across from the post office.
That's right. Yeah.
We helped buy some clothes for the kids to go to school.
Because that was right around Christmas time too.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Help buy
Yeah.
Christmas presents as
Yeah,
well.
But anyway,
Yeah.
I do need a motion to spend the money though.
Are we looking to stay at 2 and then?
Say increase. I don't care.
I'd say go up to 250.
250? Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the donation to the Circle High School after prom in the amount of 250 from the mayor/council fund.
Second.
Kid will second that. And all in favor.
Favor? I'm here.
Storm shelter.
Beginning of the meeting, I asked Ed and he graciously did a discussion of the storm shelter situation as it currently exists and any thoughts on how we can better educate the city and provide protection. Sarah, you've got some ideas.
Yes, and so council, actually, right as I was getting the packet published, my next action on Friday was to try to figure out storm shelter options. So this came out after the packet was done, but I wanted to have some public conversation just around conversations we've had within city staff and then just some options going forward. And so we've already actually had several days where we've been watching the weather and considering, what do we need to do around storm shelter operations? And so storm shelters are one of those collaborative efforts. We don't own the facility, but historically city staff have staffed that facility. And so the interlocal school makes its building available, and then we would lock and unlock and staff the shelter. And so I want to give Lisa credit. For many years, she has done that on behalf of the community as a whole. But I'm coming in new, and as I've had conversations with Lisa, what I've learned is she is actually leaving a safe location to drive across town, often while sirens are blowing, unlock the door, and then she has to remain above ground to keep that door open so that anyone seeking shelter can come in. The door can't be propped or unlocked. And so, as we've talked, I feel like this compromises her safety. It's not a responsibility that's part of her job description, and I'm not comfortable continuing to ask it of her or of our other staff member who lives in Towanda, which is Ryland. If we had a staff member who said, "I need shelter and I like to do this," that's one thing, but to ask them to leave safety and go is different. Lisa's also indicated that storm shelter use is limited. Typically, it's half dozen or fewer residents who seek shelter, and that depends on the storm event. And so last Friday, right after council packet went out, we began exploring some alternate situation or solutions to ensure that the shelter could be open because we had a pretty high risk for supercell activity. We were able to coordinate with our assigned officer through the sheriff's department, and he got approval for their staff to unlock the doors. And so Lisa coordinated to get a key to the officer who was on duty through the night that night. I coordinated with the interlocal so they would know who was in their building and what the plan was. And so we had a solution Friday night to keep the community safe. But the logistics were hard. It took several hours of staff time. I think I had about 3 hours involved. Lisa had about 4 more, just being available, coordinating, things like that. And so what I wanted to talk to you all tonight is that it would be a struggle to replicate that process with every storm event. Within storms, some of the most important things when there's an emergency are consistency and communication. And so you don't want those to become issues every time that something happens. What I've seen in past roles is that actually the greater challenge isn't the supercell storms that we know are forecast. It's more things like what we experienced last Thursday night, where we had thunderstorm potential. And then all of a sudden, I don't know about your weather radios, but mine started giving tornado warnings coming out of thunderstorms.
Yeah, last night was wild.
Yeah. And so those are hard to prep for. And so often what happens is those storms pop up in the middle of the night, people are asleep. And so you get your volunteers and your shelter seekers driving through the active weather, trying to get to safety. Under those conditions, it's actually most advisable to shelter in place, not to try to get across town. And so with this in mind, what I'd like to advise council is that I'm not comfortable as your administrator asking your staff to do this. Unfortunately, I'm not part of the solution either. I don't live here yet, working on. But I can't really ask employees to put their lives and safety at risk. First, because I care about them as people, but also because of the liability the city would incur. Now, if we had an employee who planned to regularly shelter at the shelter, that could be different. So where this moves this now is not that all hope is lost. But what we may want to do is to look at a community solution to see if there are others in the community who do value that shelter service who would be willing to volunteer. And then if so, what do we need to do with the interlocal to try to get approval for potentially a volunteer shelter base? As I was coordinating logistics, there were a lot of good conversations with partners who care very deeply. And so this is a possibility. And it kind of takes it beyond the city's role and into being a community resource. So I would be glad at your direction to kind of spearhead those conversations in the community to see if out of this conversation tonight and possibly some social media, if we have volunteers who are interested and willing to do that, and then also to coordinate with the interlocal. And so what we would need to do to move that kind of a plan forward is to confirm if the interlocal school building is built to FEMA standards. Because if they're not, we're ultimately recommending that people take shelter in a building that might not hold up. And I don't know that for sure yet. We would also need to discuss options for unlocking and making sure that we have enough volunteers who are committed to it, that we always have somebody in place. So there's still some coordination involved. We would need to talk about conditions that the shelter would or would not open. For example, most school shelters cannot open while school children are present. So it might be that the shelter couldn't open for an afternoon storm event. It wouldn't be open until 5 p.m. or so. Also, what time is our cutoff at night? And so those have to be clear cut before the storm event because emergency communication is tricky. And then finally, the city could still serve as the communicator. We could still post information on our website. Any communication would need to be in advance because if we had a disaster, all of your staff are going to be responding to the disaster and not keeping communication updated. But that is a role the city could continue to play in keeping that information in front of people. And so in those conversations, I would want to value first consistency in anything that we do to make sure that whatever our solution is, we can do it every single time. Clear communication, and then protecting the city, both our staff and our liability. So,
And making sure it's FEMA approved,
mhm,
because that's the biggest headache right there.
mhm.
Yeah.
So that's a sobering conversation, but it was on my mind given
No, that's,
that we're in severe weather patterns.
And the old school, they're on, what is it, Fifth and
That's
That's
fourth,
where
that's
the
interlocal.
fourth and north, it's that
Okay.
door right there. Because north ends at the south and then picks up again on the north side.
Okay.
Or is that, no, the east and west, I'm
East and
sorry,
west,
west
yes.
and west. So it ends on the west side, picks up again on the east
But
side.
it's an old grade school.
Right.
Okay. So
1911 high school.
No.
So I live catty corner to that school. I'm willing to be on the volunteer as we move forward with the conversation to open it in the need. So I could be one of the names on the volunteer list, 'cause I live just catty corner, literally 5 steps.
If,
So,
if we, or do we know of any other communities? I'm sure a lot of communities get faced with the same issue that have a public education program or a town hall meeting on how to effectively shelter in place. Do we do? I don't know. They still do the storm watch meetings. Does anybody know?
I think they do. Mhm.
I don't know if they do any sheltering options.
That is probably something we could organize through Butler County.
EMS or
yeah.
You're a
first
lawyer,
interlocal.
Rob, you should know.
Well, I mean-
He looked right at Robert.
If we're going to offer people
Yeah,
if we're gonna say we're not able to guarantee this anymore, then I think we need to be able to offer solutions to the problem. And the solution is giving them an idea of how to handle the situation if they are stuck at home.
and I think it's great that she volunteered. I think we should also have to look, maybe having 2 or 3 people possibly on a list in case she's out of
Well,
town.
I think,
That it's like, oh,
and
well,
I think
that
that's
doesn't help.
Sarah's objective in trying to get
Yeah,
community feedback. I'm sure there's some people that are gonna
Yeah.
volunteer, but again, they've got to understand that they're volunteering on their own. We're not asking them necessarily to, and the liability, because there's the liability if one of them gets hurt does not extend to the city. But I think educate some type of, even some we send out in the mail, some kind of education material on, because like you said, a lot of them are just pop-ups like the other night where you wouldn't have had time to get any place. When you think, oh, this is nice, rain, oh, a little wind, a couple of limbs blew down, and all of a sudden, whoop, you know, and
how'd that go again, Mike?
That's on video.
Well, you're also looking at, if people are driving to this, they gotta have a place to park. While they're inside, if their vehicle gets damaged,
Yeah.
we're up a tree again.
that could, most people would rather lose a vehicle than their head.
The other
Really?
thing, in a worst case scenario,
Yeah.
if we actually took a hit from a severe storm and people's houses were lost, once you shelter them, you have longer term responsibility for them.
And we somewhat went through that a number of years ago. I lost a couple of buildings.
Oh, we are getting one building rebuilt. We might think about using that as a hotel, but
Yeah, no, I think these are all good things to think about and consider. I'd like to, it intrigues me to see if it's up to FEMA's code or not.
Yes.
So,
Can you develop a little bit of information, like is it up to FEMA code and those kinds of things, and
Mhm.
bring it back at some point?
Yes.
We could-
Wasn't that part of their bond?
I don't know that.
Didn't
they
they-
did-
didn't
I
they
don't know that they did the old grade school.
Right.
They did.
I
they
thought
did-
Don was here like 2 years ago and was like, "Hey, we're gonna redo
That's,
the buildings here, and it's gonna
they
be a
did-
storm shelter."
they did
And
the high school, the new
after
elementary,
the high school, it was even
The elementary.
yeah.
yeah, the
Wasn't
new
that
elementary supposed
here?
to be.
or
But
The new-
those are two different places.
Oh, okay.
So the interlocal is the
the old high
building
school.
that was the, well.
The old
it used
high
to be
school.
K through 8 before the middle school was in town, right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, so before they built the middle school in Benton, that was K through 8 here in town.
The grade school that I attended.
Yeah,
Okay, yes, then.
back before the 3-point line.
But those are two different.
He caught it.
But it was
He
after-
had an itch on his nose.
But take some solace in it was after I had to ride a horse to school.
Yeah. I thought they upgraded that building too, though. That was all part of the bond. I swore. It was.
I'm not sure that they did that one. I know they did Benton. I know they did the middle school. I know they did the high school, and I think they did something at Well Hill. But I'm not sure they did that.
Where are
one.
storm shelters at for town?
And so
I
part of
don't-
this conversation would be trying to confirm with
Yeah,
the
just-
appropriate entities which
Yeah.
buildings are to spec. Another future part of this conversation, not for this season and probably not for the next few, but there is discussion about a new fire station at some point. At some point, we probably should discuss just lifespan of City Hall. And so you could think in a future public building, what types of, Mhm. And that's probably several years down the road,
Right.
but it could be a future
The
option.
Or
one
instead
thing that-
dig a big
when I was-
basement when they
One
put
thing
that.
that when I was on the fire board,
New
we
fire
did discuss,
department.
did find out was that if they put a basement under a new fire station, FEMA would pay for it.
Hmm.
There were grants available. to
There,
pay
there,
for a storage over
there's the solution right there.
Well,
I like it.
I'm just saying, there's some options out there, but they aren't current options.
Twenty,
They're
30 for
the
the-
things we. Okay, so do you need anything tonight?
I don't. I just
Okay.
mostly wanted the council's blessing,
Yeah.
and then I'm glad to spearhead that community conversation. But for the moment, we may, in storm events, until we have solutions in place, need to say at this point the city recommends
Shelter
sheltering
in
in place, and then direct to resources on our website.
And Lisa, did you say usually about half a dozen to a dozen or people or so show up when you guys have it opened?
There's a couple from Pine Ridge because they don't want to go to the Pine Ridge shelter.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of folks that live up there, maybe within the block of the building.
Okay.
About a half dozen is what I usually get
Okay.
the
People,
most.
anything else on that
Mm-mm.
topic?
I'm excited to. get
Other
some
business
information.
announcements. We still have a planning commission vacancy. Is that why you're here?
But I didn't write.
I asked you at dinner the other night, and you kind of looked at me funny. Are you interested in being our planning commission vacancy person, Ms. Gorman?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Exquisite.
Then with the council's approval, I would like to appoint Yvonne Gorman to be the new member of the planning commission, if I could get a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion.
Motion.
Wait,
Motion to appoint Yvonne Gorman.
got Kit Angel.
Second.
It's aggressive tonight.
So Angel first.
Yes.
Okay,
Jenny.
okay, Angel and Jenny.
All in favor? All opposed? Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I have lived here my whole life, except from when I was 3 to 4, and when I was 18.
Just like gap before.
The parents told me Wichita, and they were like, we wanna go to
Well,
school
you had to
here."
live someplace while you had to live someplace while he was.
Yeah. Then we got married, and so he was in El Dorado, but we very quickly moved. And I just remember him, the year we moved here, saying, "It's just so much nicer here." I'm like, "I just love that."
We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I'm excited to get.
And I'll repeat what I said earlier. There are tons of ways to get experience in public service in this town.
Thank you.
The more people that step up, the more support the employees get from the public. So, all right, anything else we need to discuss? We do need to have an executive session.
Okay.
Ms. Watkins?
I motion to enter an executive session. I move that the governing body recesses into executive session for 20 minutes to discuss personal matters of non-elected personnel and those considering consultation with an attorney on matters deemed privileged and the attorney-client relationship pursuant to the justification list in KSA 75-4319B1 and 2. The open meeting will resume in the Towanda City Council Room at 8:55.
I second that.
All in favor?
Did you include me?
Yes.
Okay.
She said
I
attorney.
thought you just said governing body, and then it was like,
Let's
with the
clarify,
attorney, I'm like,
with the
oh, okay.
attorney and the city administrator.
Oh,
Yeah,
with
city
the
administrator.
attorney and the city
Okay,
administrator.
I second that one.
okay.
And then
Thank you.
I was like, I'm out. And they were like, oh, attorney posted. I'm like, wait, maybe I'm not out.
And for members of the public tuning in, we are going to go ahead and discontinue the feed. Okay.
It used to be on